So in this video we're going to talk about pimping up your flash, and not a normal flash, a Godox AD200. Hello, Matt Osborne here from MrLeica.com. As a portrait photographer, I'm well aware that no matter how nice the camera, whether it's a Leica as we have here, it's not the camera or the lens that's important, it's the light. Now a Godox AD200 is already a step up from a normal flash, and we'll talk about some pros and cons at the end of this video, so stay tuned for that. But what I'm really talking about today is upgrades for your AD200. I'm going to be looking at the Godox H200R round head, and I'm also going to look at the Godox AK-R1 light modifier kit. So let's do one at a time. So if we step back just for a second, if you buy Godox AD200 light, you get a standard kind of speedlight type head, and you also get a bare bulb head. And then the way it works is a quick release on the side, you slide it out, and then you can basically attach either of those two heads. Those are both great, but what if you had something that gave a best of kind of both of these situations? The speed head attachment is good because it has modelling lights and it has the zoom capabilities. It's the same as a normal speed light. And the bare bulb is good because it's obviously bare bulb, so you get even lights coming from all sides. But this doesn't have modelling lights. So ideally you kind of want something here. And that is exactly what I've got. So if I open it up, inside this kind of hard case is this. This is the Godox H200R. And for me it is a combination between a bare bulb and a speedlight head. Since buying this head, I've stopped using this and this, so it gives you an idea of how good the round head is. Why is the round head so good? It's great because it has a spiral flash tube, meaning instead of getting a rectangle of light, meaning if you use the speedlight and you point it to the wall, you'll have a rectangle of light across, say, the model's face or whatever you're photographing. I shoot models, so that's normally what I see. If you use a round head, you have a round light, so it looks much more, say, like the sun or natural looking light, because the tube is circular or spiral effect rather than just like a straight bulb like you would get on our standard light. The round head also has a slightly more powerful built-in modelling light. So I think this is 3.6 watts and this is 4.3 watts. That doesn't sound a lot, but it's enough for me to use this with the modelling light only as a light for both portraits and my YouTube videos. I'll come on to that again in a second. So if I just move these two out of the way, I'll clip this head on. It's a really simple and kind of nice design. Push it in, clip, and now we're good to go. Now you have a round head on your existing Godox AD200, assuming you already have this light. So that's part one of the video. I can include an Amazon link below for everything I'm showing you, but this is such a great upgrade to my existing light, which I've had for quite a while. You can see it's well used. Okay, so now part two is the light modify kit to go with this round head. Within this box there are lots of goodies, so I might need to move the flash and then I can lay them all out. I'll keep the head off and then I can show you how the attachments work on this. So within this case you have lots of really cool accessories. Okay, so the great thing about all these attachments is they are magnetic and they are stackable, which means you can clip it straight onto your head and job done. And this now makes the round head into more like an open bulb effect, or more like some of the more expensive, say, pro photo lights. So I really like this for kind of very natural looking light, and I use this a lot at, say, weddings. This is a grid, honeycomb grid, again just clips on the front like so. This is really useful for either controlling spill, so if I'm in a wedding for example, it means the light will go forward and it won't go spraying all over the place and, say, annoying people over here eating their dinner, and it's just going forward and lighting up the bride and groom or the cake or whatever. So I use this mostly for light control, but it gives kind of a more controlled beam. This I use less often. And this is a snoot, and it gives you kind of more of a very controlled tight beam of light. This is more useful for, say, fashion shoots where you want to highlight, for example, my watch. And if you wanted the watch to really stand out, or a handbag or whatever you're photographing, you can just put a spot of light from this onto the garment or the item, and it just makes that item really pop in the photograph. So I use this less for weddings, less for model shoots, but I do use it more for kind of points of light or kind of very creative lighting. This I love for weddings. This is a bounce card, which means if you bounce your light up and off the ceiling, which I don't really do that often, it hits this and works like a normal bounce card on a speed light, where you get catch lights because a bit of light is going to come forward. If you can see it like this, it will go up and then a bit will come forward and give you catch lights on the people over here. I use it more as a flag. So for me, I point the light forward, again, normally at wedding situations, and it's going to be above people, and it stops the light going down onto people, say during the speeches and things like that. The light's going to go across the room or bounce off a wall, but it's not going to shine into people's eyes. So I really find this really useful for weddings in particular. But it's supposed to be designed as a bounce card, really. You can rotate this and use it as a flag, but I just leave it that way and still use it as a flag. This is a normal diffuser cap, so this means you'll get a wider beam of light. Let's say, for example, just in very simple terms, if the beam of light is this wide on the standard round head, when you put this on, if you're shooting, say, a 21mm lens or something like that, you're going to get a much wider beam. It's the same as using a diffuser cap on your normal speed light, more or less, with the advantage is there is less bulk to the setup. And lastly, one of my favourites is the gel holder, which is, as I say, is what I use for my hair light for my YouTube videos. I normally use this, and then I'll often stack that to make the light only go forward, and then potentially, if I want it slightly softer, I'll use the diffuser cap as well, and I'll use that setup. If I'm at weddings, I'll often do flag and soft light, like so. Really useful setup. Or if I need the light to go further across the room, I'll use potentially a grid or the softer beam, but not quite a... This means it's going to go forward and you're not wasting light here and here. This is going to give you more of a all-round light. So if you're outside, you're going to waste light going in all directions except this way. But inside, it'll bounce off the walls. Outside, this is much more suited because the light's mostly going forward, so you're not going to waste light going everywhere as much as this one. So it's really using the right tool for the right job. But because all this just fits into a tiny little case, it's so much better in terms of the size. If I quickly go through some pros and cons, and I can really show you why this is so useful. And it packs down so small, it's just amazing. Oh, there's also some barn doors. I'm not sure where my barn doors are. I'll bring up an image to show you. I use barn doors to make a narrow slit of light, usually say on a model's face. Really nice way to control the light. It also helps flag the light. So if we quickly do 5 advantages of the round head versus the standard setup. Number 1, the modelling light is brighter than the standard one, meaning for me, in a dim lit situation, you can use this as a modelling light only for video or for photography if using, say, a fast lens and a higher ISO. The second advantage is already mentioned, you're going to get soft round lights rather than kind of a harder rectangular light, which looks much more natural in the photos. In terms of the open bulb effect, if you use the round head with a dome, it's a much stronger, more droppable setup than the bare bulb on its own. This bare bulb is actually broken because, I don't know if you can see, it's smashed. It dropped in the studio and broke, so then for the same amount of money as replacing just this bulb, you can buy the entire round head, so it's kind of a no-brainer. And then it has the modelling light as well, and also does more or less the same as the bare bulb, so it's like win-win. Well, we've got the bare bulb out. The next advantage, I used to use the bare bulb with accessories like so, and you can see, look how much bigger that setup is compared to that if you're trying to fit it into your camera bag. Both the designs do exactly the same thing. I used to use this for weddings, now I use this for weddings. And again, just in terms of accessories, if you want a standard reflector to kind of make your light go further, you'll need to use a modifier on a bare bulb, otherwise you're wasting a lot of light because it's going all around, kind of outwards, unless it's going forwards. On the round head, because it's got enclosed sides, it's only going to go forwards, meaning you'll waste less light and more light's going to go forward. And then if we compare the AD200 to a standard speedlight, 3 advantages of the AD200. Number 1, you have a modelling light versus no modelling light, meaning if you're new to photography you can see where the light is going, and also you can use it as a video light as already mentioned. Number 2, there's a lot more power in an AD200 than a standard speedlight. Don't need to look at this particular speedlight, I'm just talking in speedlights in general. These are much more powerful. Really good for, say, event photography, and in my case weddings, but also portraits in the studio where you just fire in the flash a lot. And number 3, open bulb option versus no open bulb option on a standard speedlight. Lastly, 2 reasons why you may prefer a speedlight. Number 1, the size. I really love my Godox TT350 because it's a smaller and lighter. And secondly, you can use a speedlight on top of your camera on the hot shoe, whereas the AD200 you can't, it's more like a studio light. So the small speedlights still have their place, which is why I use both of these for my photography. And lastly, I often get questions on how do I fire my Godox lights from my Leica cameras. I use the Godox XT16 trigger on top of Leica M cameras, Leica CL and now the Leica SL. This will fire both the AD200 and the TT350s, but the other option is to have a TT350 on the top of the camera, and I use this to fire the AD200. So say in a wedding situation I can have this on the top of the camera and have this off camera, and then I can use this as a fill when I'm kind of running and gunning, and I can have this as like a high power light setup, say in the corner of the room, just blasting light, giving say fake daylight, or say a rim light for say the first dance, something like that. So off-camera flash is always my first choice, whether it's the small TT350 or in this video the AD200, but worst case you can fire the AD200 from a TT350. I've thrown out quite a few names and numbers in this video, so if you want to see details of all the products I've mentioned, just check below in the video description and I'll put details of all the items I've mentioned. Just to mention, the round head accessory kit that fits on the AD200 also fits the Godox AD100 Pro, the Godox V1, the AK-R200 and the GI01 flash, because all 4 of those lights have the same round head design. And last bonus tip for anybody watching, normally if you use the Godox AD200 with a normal head, you can use one of these Bowens flash brackets which come with a lot of the Godox lights. It goes onto the top of your flash stand and you put the light through here like so. But if you're using the round head, it no longer fits, so you need to buy the S2 bracket. So look for the S2 bracket if you're using the round head, or you can use the standard bracket, looks like so, if you're not using the round head. That's it for this video, hope you found it useful. As always, a big thanks to my patrons and see you in the next video. Bye.